Okay, so now, so what I have done is I've loaded up the campaign, and this is the very first map of the campaign. And this map is called Jungle Holdout. So in the Steam Workshop page for this, it's called Mission 00 Jungle Holdout. And you start here, and again, I'm about to start diving into spoilers, so don't watch from here on if you don't want to be spoiled. So it starts here, and you've got allies here who you need to keep safe. Draconian. They're also Nomad race, and then you start for this mission. You are Sorcerer class and Nomad race. And so let's talk a little bit about the Nomad race. It is the double on fire, and then I forget what this is. Sorry. So we've got sorcerer type units starting with stuff like that. And as far as the characteristics of Nomad, they have decent melee and ranged and defense and some fire protection, but they have frost weakness. And in general, their units are a little lower HP, a little bit. But this is kind of the standard setup. And they integrated like storm wyverns, like shock-based wyverns that can also be dragons. And so you happen to start with one. And this one, should probably go through the units, but maybe I'll just kind of show them as we get them throughout. So Nomad Apprentice, oil bolts, and so you see that this oil impact has the chance to demoralize and reduce a little bit of movement. And then this is a fun thing. It's a 10 health buff, and then 5% of health regained each round, which is pretty small, except if you can be a perfectionist and level up a given non-hero unit to really high HP through a lot of champion levels, 5% of health can start to become significant, right? Especially if they're super tanky, really useful. Magic Lamp is very interesting too because it imbues the person you grant it to with ranged attack. So you can give any sort of unit that's usually only melee, you can give them a ranged attack, which can be really OP in some ways. And on top of that, it gives the unit luck. And so, especially if they're high morale, they have a chance to lucky out of a bunch of damage, which is really useful. In terms of interesting things, the game floating. That's typical for an apprentice. Nomad Chieftains, very interesting unit. You'll almost always start with a Nomad Chieftain on every single map in the campaign. They likewise have this oil bolts thing where it has the chance to debuff them in terms of morale. Notice the low hit points. Notice the low starting defense. Throw Fire Plague. This is an opportunity, and I think it's not minus 20% fire weakness. It should just be 20% fire weakness. That way it makes the subsequent fire attacks you do more amenable. Throw Fire Plague is a nice way to level up the XP of this unit because it's long. Just you see that range is extreme. It can really cast this at a long range. So you can goad enemies into attacking if you're clearing out independent structures, and it's just good XP. Magical Mount. That's interesting. In terms of upgrades, you see that regen down there? We talked about that on this. And I don't know if it's the same stats. I don't know. Let's see if we can look that up. Because, let's see, I think regen is maybe, is it not in the book? That's annoying. Okay. Regardless, regen, it's similar. It's like, it's X% of HP regained. So you can bestow that on somebody. So in a lot of these campaigns, I would level up a chieftain to elite so they could give regen to somebody, and that could stack up if they were a high HP unit. The Nomad Jinn are really cool units. I use them a fair bit in this first map, not so much in the later maps, because I was playing really perfectionist, so my starting stack did most of the work for almost all of the maps except the last one. So I didn't have a lot of incentive to have to build up Jinn, and they also came out too late. But let's take a look at them. So they can do ranged, and this isn't resisted by a lot of units, so 8 shock is useful. Cosmic heal, you have a chance to give a +1 res and a heal with that, and also the chance to avoid attacks of opportunity, which is a niche thing. Shock projectiles, so you have the chance to do additional damage as you stack stacks of that. They're floating, and then again, because they are incorporeal, this is their big appeal. So their HP is not super huge. It only grows by 4 each level, but they do gain defense and resistance a little bit. You notice that inflicts stun at the bottom. A physical protection 60% incorporeal unit that can inflict stun. It's like a Storm Sister on steroids, right? So it's a pretty cool unit. 100% blight protection. The frost weakness doesn't really come into play until later in the campaign. It doesn't bother you too much, but like fire protection, useful in a lot of situations. Shock protection, it's a really strong lineup. Really strong lineup of skills. So really cool unit. Barbarians, I didn't use them too much. They're tier 1. Makes sense. Who else? Spearmen, they're a tier 1. Pikemen, they're okay. Desert archers, these guys are decent. For a tier 1, they can defend walls and help out other stacks decently. So you can kind of see here, they get that inflict oil impact later. But their range damage, +1, +1, +1. So you're getting into 12 damage per hit, or actually 13 damage per hit, right? Trooper, veteran, expert, and elite, they get range strength at each thing. So it's a decent tier 1 archer unit. And then commoners. Oh yeah, we should still. Do they have any? They didn't. They're just guerrilla. So for commoners, which is like your regular unit, they can throw a single time with every hit, reducing morale. They have some interesting like morale things where they kind of balance each other out. I didn't have to pay that much attention to it. It's kind of interesting to read through and see how this works, because like as you hurt their morale, you do less damage to them personally. So it's kind of interesting. They have some stuff specifically targeting undead. There's not a whole lot of undead in this campaign, so it's kind of whatever. Anything interesting here? Not really. So I use these guys occasionally. The neat thing about the spearmen as a pike unit is they can throw a spear. So that's flexible. That's nice. Inflict dazzled. That's also interesting. This came into play a little tiny bit on those units I managed to keep alive and get up to gold. Inflict dazzled. Yeah, why not? Useful. Yeah. So I think that's a talk through of all the units. So this is what it looks like, and I'm not going to like go into the heart of the story. I'm going to give you the brass tacks that matter for gameplay. It basically said that, hey, defend your stuff, defend your ally stuff, Enemies are going to keep streaming in. You're trying to hold out as long as possible. Or you can also alter stuff. That's a change that they made. Cosmos, man. That's interesting. Class Cosmos. That's interesting. So this, I think, I don't know how often Cosmos was a specialization. It was for this first map. We'll see when we check later maps how often, but there's some interesting stuff. I wonder if I look up Cosmos, if it will be in the tome. Because I think there's a Wikipedia entry. Oops, maybe I can spell it right. Cosmos. Alter node, enchant city. What is this? Oh yeah, enchanted weapons, like a +2 random damage type bonus. Enchanted armor, I forget what that is. Units summoned in a city's domain get this. That's kind of a nice buff. Shielded units, magic shield, not flanking attack. That's pretty useful. Right. Pretty useful. That's kind of cool. Yeah, again, this stuff came so late, it really didn't alter the kind of path of the game, but it was kind of neat to play around with. Let's see, enchanted. Let's see how many enchanted entries there are. Enchanted armor, okay. Oh, right, so it gives this buff to units produced. You don't even need the, like, special structure or whatever. Or no, armor. No. Okay, yeah, this is from that special structure that came with the whatever you call it. But with this is what the Cosmos. So you +1 and then random require one of these. So okay, great. This is particularly useful. Enchanted weapon can be any of the following, 2 different use. So you'll get 2 of any of these. So nice little thing. I think. Don't know if that's new or old. Crystal tree. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, there's attacking from below. You're supposed to hold out for 50 turns or something like that. Let me pause here and load up a save later on in this map, and we'll talk about what there is to talk about. All right. Back again. So, to reorient you, we started here. So, what did I learn about this map? How did I approach it? Yada, yada, yada. Also got some new stuff to show you. So, let's start with cities. Let's start with troop flow. So, basically, I built this up, and I was like, well, I could sit in my cities. Oh, my ally is fine. It's just because I won by holding out. For some reason, it made my ally lose, just the white. I don't know why, it's just the way it was coded, but we held out successfully, and it was super great and all that. But as you can see in this place, I don't think I did any special nomadic buildings in here. No, but I was able to produce these. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. 180 production is a lot. There's that. Just had a structure there. I did link up stuff with roads to make things a little bit easier. I built some of these, yeah. So basically what I did is I said, well, I could defend or I could push in and see what's in the rest of the map. Maybe I can take them by surprise. And that was a good decision. So firstly, you could take this out. And then, so I basically built road and I came down here and I just crushed westward. And so I just took over cities and started building archer units. So I kept going this way into here. You can see that this effect is up for the enchanted weapons and armor. This is also where I had one of the more built up cities because the enemy built it all up and then I took it over. So in here you can build the rock tower is the tier 3 unit for nomads, or the rocks. Oh yeah, and I didn't talk about war elephants before, so let's take a peek at the war elephants, because, yeah. So for these guys, tier 2, they start at 80s, kind of similar to a mammoth, 10-9, trample ground, I forget what that does, guard breaker at elite, which proved useful at a few times, a little bit of HP bump at each step, only a tier 2, decent for a tier 2. Demolisher, which proves useful in some points. Flaming charge. So this is like instead of a what's the knight's thing, the deadly charge, whatever, that stacks on top of the regular charge. So that's what that is, right? So extra charge damage ends up being a fair amount. I built it in this city, I think, and so that's why I got the enchanted armor and enchanted weapons. This was inherent. I forget why. From Vigorous Mount, but I forget where this came from. But that's the Nomad. So here's the Nomad rock. This is the tier 3. Kind of interesting. I took a Empire upgrade that gave Grant Magic Strike to all rocks, I believe. So 3 of the following elements. So it's a +3 damage bonus. Opens up a lot of new damage channels. Really cool. Inflict morale break, which we saw on the commoner before. This stuff we've all seen on the commoner unit before. It's got that flaming charge too. The first strike. Seen this stuff from the city enchantment. Nomad Prophet military. Yep. So, and this is just not even upgraded. So 96 is pretty decent health. A +6 at each level. Nothing super amazing in terms of statistics upgrade, but yeah, they're fun units. It's not a super high defense. You can get their HP up super high, and so they can take a lot of HP loss, but it felt like they were losing a lot of HP when they were in the thick of battle. So I used them a bit, but again, rarely did I have a bunch. The game was already won at that point. But what I did is I built archers up behind me, because, as it turns out, there were triggers that every X number of turns, stacks would pop up. And normally the game is thinking, well, they're not going to invade here, so the stacks will pop up in enemy cities, and then they'll send the stacks wave after wave into our fortified cities. But I went ahead and took these over, and so stacks would just pop up in the middle of my territory along the edge. So it was good that I was building stuff. As you can see, I was building a lot of things. In terms of champ levels, champ 1. What else? So here is where the sorcerer ended up. So they level the XP cap at 8. Is there anything of crazy note here? Neat little buff there that you can upgrade into early on. Most of this is familiar stuff from vanilla. Yeah, so none of that's super neat. Let's see what might be novel to this. Spell of Return. I don't know if that existed in the vanilla game, but there it is. The summoners cast within the domain of target city. Yeah, so that if you know you're going to be defending, which this map you're meant to be, +4 resistance, that's a huge buff. So if you can cast that and hold that on a city, the stuff you built within it, it's going to be tremendous. Yep. So I crashed through here. There's this one random giant dwelling here. I think that's all normal, right? Yeah. And then up through here. And so I basically took over all these cities and then just held them. And I did end up producing a few gin. Let's go back to what my itemage was. Where are you at? Where are you at? Oh yeah, let's see. Champ 1, Champ 5. Yeah, so this was this was like my original apprentice. So they got up to that. So 110. This guy, Champ 4. Yeah, so Champ 4, 106. So that's when that bestow regen. Oh, we'll be able to see this now? Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's the same thing as when it's from this guy. It's the 10 up front, a +1 defense, and 5% each round. And you can, by the way, you can stack regen from a chieftain with conjuring regen. So you could have both of these operating at once. So it would be like 10% of its health regained if the same unit had both. And so there would be times where I would like Champ 5. Yeah, I'd like put those buffs on this guy who had 115 health and physical protection. And I was facing some blight units and it would be immune to that. So, you know, just crazy tanky. 115 with a 60% incorporeal with those regens cast on it. Chef's kiss, you know. Oh, we gotta still talk about items. So what sort of items was I able to find? Because I, you know, cleared all the structures on the map, right? And so this to reduce the defense is okay. This for a +3, that's decent. You know, impact, a little more health, some +2 defense, +3, +1, some fire protection, and then I had some other stuff that I kept on me. So I had a lot of different shooting options, basically. Yeah, and in terms of upgrades, of note on the Sorcerer, Charged Armory, Magic Affinity, Inflict Stun, Inflict Oil, Impact. Well, it's native to something else. That's from item. Yeah, so it's only 8 levels. So I wanted to, the big thing was being able to inflict stun as it's a sorcerer. So that's that. Now what else is interesting? So you'll notice this gray background, you're not able to pass guys through it. So we were stuck on this side of the map. Now this gray wall ends here because you start with these cities here. And when I brought a unit close to here, it said, oh, if you keep going this way, there's a ship you can take. And there is literally, if you bring a high vision unit and you can see a ship, and it says if you get in range with it, the campaign will end early. You will hide, and it will be a shame, but you'll be able to survive to fight another day. So it looks like you can, like, if you're getting overrun, basically those people who are not good, they're getting overrun, they can escape to here, and the scenario will end early, and it will, you know, branch you down one path of the storyline. But what I found is that whereas this was the trigger zone, if I brought like a flying unit up and around and behind here, it wouldn't trigger the zone here, because I was like, you know, I always love exploring maps, and I'm like, oh, so the author clearly didn't want people to look behind here, but I snuck a rock and I explored and was wondering if I was going to find any Easter eggs. I didn't, but I wanted to check, so I checked around. Now, again, I'm playing with like a 1.5, 2-year-old version of this set of campaign scenarios. There might have been, you know, any of this could have changed. So again, disclaimer, your experience might be different because they may have different stuff. He may have filled in this, or they may have filled in this. I don't know, right? But so that is the first map. I think given how long this has taken, I never got to use this, but I was excited to maybe try and use it, but it ended at this point. Oh, and it was like, I don't know, it hit turn 40, and it's like, you're doing well. Do you want to be super awesome and like try and survive another 20 turns? And at that point, I had like taken over most of the map, so it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so I wonder if I got some sort of like bonus going forward, or there's some sort of different outcome going forward because of that. And by the way, my ally didn't really do anything. I think they took over. I didn't have to defend them too much because I was on the offensive so much. I think they took over like this city. And that was the only thing they took, but otherwise they just held their stuff, and that was fine. That was all they needed to do. Yeah, but I think because, let's see, I'm already 24 minutes into just talking about one map. Jeez Louise. yeah, I think I'm going to do this series as a series in a set of episodes, because my intro episode was like 7 minutes. This has turned out to be 24 minutes on just this map. And then I think I'll just do separate chunks for the upcoming map. So yeah, so this has been the first map. It is called Mission 00 Jungle Holdout, per the Steam Workshop description. And now I think Pirate Coast is the next map. So I'll talk about Pirate Coast, which is Mission 1A next. See you in the next one.